Hey, what's up, team? This is Eddie Gray. Welcome to Resources for the Modern Creative, where we help you become a better producer. Here we have Devious Machines Duck plugin. Really great for adding any and all movement. It is a very sleek plugin. I want to show you 4 or 5 things that you can do with it. Let me go ahead and just show you the subject matter that we're working with today. Okay, I'm gonna isolate the pluck synth that you're hearing, and it just kind of carries on and on with a bunch of reverb. I'm gonna go ahead and instantiate Duck by Devious Machines. Now, don't get it twisted. This is way more complicated and intricate than it looks. At the top level, we can use various trigger modes to go ahead and use this technology. I'm gonna start with the repeat function, which is the most obvious. Depending on the speed that you have it set to, this is going to pump in a specific way. So right now we have quarter notes selected at a value of 100%. So we're going to hear this at its full potential. Check it out. Now you have the ability to choose different shapes here in the bottom right, and that's going to change the sound significantly. So just that in and of itself gives you so much power and potential. You can also create the shapes to suit your fancy. So let's go ahead and play with these nodes and find something that's suitable. Okay, so let's say you're more hands-on. You can go ahead and start saving your own user presets. In addition to that, if you're somebody that uses presets, you can go ahead and enjoy the really genius presets that Devious Machines has made available here. So that's the first functionality, is repeat mode. This is going to keep playing on and on and on. Let's try eighth notes really quick. And so this can make a really big difference. I mean, you know, if you listen to the signal before Duck, check this out. It's okay, it's interesting, but again, if I back off of this amount knob, you can take this interesting melodic line and multiply its excitement like tenfold. Check it out. Now, something you could do here is you can automate the volume of the track so that this is ducking over time and the track is reducing in volume. So think something like this, for example. What are some other things that you can do with Devious Machines Duck? We can use sidechain functionality in order to trigger the sound when it's appropriate. So you know the sound of the synth. I've showed you that. I'm going to go ahead and sidechain this or connect this to this track right here. It's called Bittersweet Percussion. So let me audition that for you. Okay, so this is what's going to happen. When I create the connection between the synth and now the audio track Bittersweet Percussion, rather than it being triggered internally either by repeat mode or plug-in input, which we haven't talked about yet, we can use the sidechain to create something interesting, something better than the sum of its parts. So let's go ahead and do that now at a value of 100%. So under trigger mode, I'm going to go ahead and select sidechain. And so now this is going to be getting its signal from the sidechain. Here we go. Okay, now if you want to fine tune those settings, you click on the gear icon and you play with the filter that will be sidechaining the signal. You can also use hysteresis and hold off to basically avoid double triggering. We also have a look ahead feature, which is really good for catching really fast transients. So for example, sometimes the transients will hit and it might feel like duck is triggering after the fact. So if you feel like the plugin is maybe in a sluggish way, then you might want to play with the look ahead. Your options are going to be like 1 millisecond, 2 millisecond, 5, 10, and 15. So let's go ahead and listen to this. So that's interesting, right? Because now it's moving with the song as it's being triggered by the bittersweet percussion. Check it out. That's another pretty sweet thing that you can do. Now, bear in mind, it's triggering quarter notes there, but you could also trigger 16th notes if you wanted to. So lots of sonic possibilities ahead. So we can add sidechain capabilities. We can use the repeat function. So this is just triggering every single time in sync with the project BPM. Something else that you can do is you can have this trigger internally. So if you go back to bittersweet percussion, I'm going to go ahead and set the trigger mode to plugin input. And I could then go into the advanced settings here and make this fit my particular track. But what I want to do here is have it be so that every single time a transient hits, this plugin is going to essentially repeat the ducking function or the envelope function. So every single time it detects the transient, it will basically re-trigger. All right, let's go ahead and check this out. Now, if it's not being detected, you're not going to hear it. So just a heads up, you do have to set this up properly. Let's see that nothing's happening there. Let's bring the trigger level back. I'll back off of the amount and let's see what that sounds like in the context of the mix. It'll probably turn this into a bit more of a percussive kind of shaker thing. Check it out. So that's a very different world than if I bypass it, we get this. Using the plugin input trigger mode really yields different results. Now, this can be the kind of thing that you do from section to section. It really is up to you. Let's check out not the repeat function, not the sidechain function, not the plugin input section, but the MIDI functionality. How do we use that? Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select this sound of an implosion. Check it out. Okay, so that's going to be the audio that we're using. Now I'm going to mute this because, believe it or not, we're going to actually run this through an instrument. What kind of instrument, you say? If I go all the way to the bottom here in Logic's menu, we have what are called AU MIDI controlled effects. And if I go up to Devious Machines, you can see that duck is an option. So I'm going to go ahead and instantiate that as an instrument. Then I'm going to create another sidechain relationship. This is obviously a little bit different than before because now this is an instrument connecting to an audio track. So new level impact is connected. So then now what we previously heard on this audio track, which is now muted, will be essentially being sent through the plugin. And so this is going to sound a little bit different. Now, the way we're going to trigger this is with MIDI. So anytime I hit a MIDI event, it doesn't really matter what the note is or anything like that. It's going to trigger, in this case, a quarter note ducking effect, as we're about to see here. So let me go ahead and solo these just to really get a sense of what I'm talking about. And check this out. All right, so do not be deterred. Well, all that's happening is that these MIDI notes that I set up in advance are essentially just manipulating the plugin. So I could, for example, set this up every 16th note like this. Check it out. Right? You could do this so that it's trigger happy as well. So we do, maybe some very fast cuts like this. See, it didn't even have a chance to trigger, but take a listen to this. Yeah, so this is an interesting little pattern here. I'm going to go ahead and just repeat that. Now, again, this is all up for grabs because we can change the value here so it's triggering a faster response. But in this case, I really think quarter notes are working nicely. Okay, so let's listen to this instrument in Devious Machines Duck. Now, you're not going to hear anything on the right side here, of course, because there's no audio coming through, and hence, sure, it's triggering the plugin, but you're just not going to hear any audio coming. So that is how that works. Now, the last thing that I want to leave you with that I really appreciate about this plugin is the very fact that you can run a couple of instances of the plug and get some pretty insane sounds. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go ahead and demo the lead on this track, which is pretty nuts as it is, but here, check this out. It's this blue track here. You can't miss it. Take a listen. Okay, so you're hearing all sorts of magic going on, right? So I'm going to go ahead and turn on one instance of duck. And here I have a quarter note value. So this is just basically going to pump. Check it out. Now, without going too deep into it, they also have this really crafty crossover section, which basically allows me to determine a low and a high crossover point. And I can have this pump more or less when it comes to those two values. So let's say I wanted the low end to pump significantly, but the high end maybe not so much. So at their full value, it's going to pump like this. But if I back off of the high value here, I get a bit of a blend. So that sounds like this. All right, so that's a very different sound just as it is. And then I'll add a secondary version of duck here, and this will be 16th notes. So think of a tremolo pad or something like that, and that'll sound like this. All right, and then you could add some parallel compression or something just to make sure it's all beefed up for you. But let's go ahead and listen to this newfound signal now. Here is before. All right, let's bring in duck to make this really stand out. Here we go. Again, before. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you want to support us further, go into the description and you will find different ways to do that. As always, my aim here is just to make everyone better and to do so in the clearest and in the most concise fashion possible. So this is Eddie Gray signing off. If there's any plugins you want to see me demo, go ahead and let me know and I'll do my best to put that on the queue. Otherwise, I will catch you guys on the next one. Take good care. Stay up.